This is a radio check. How do I come in? Can you hear me? Okay. Gideon, can you hear me? I see a dot over your head, so hopefully you can. Welcome, Delani. So let's begin. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I think everybody, there might be some new people, so I'll introduce myself and talk about what we're here for today. My name is Ferox. I am a 33, or soon to be 34-year-old disciple, a Buddhist lay disciple of the Theravadan tradition. What that means is I'm not a monk, I'm not a master, I'm not a guru of any kind. I'm just a guy on his path of the Dhamma, just like all of us. What we do here is we follow the traditional Dhamma talk setup where the first half hour is usually for the talk, and that's going to be my part, and the second half hour is for discussion and questioning. It's traditional when monks talk that you hold off all your questions to the second part, but since I'm not a monk and I don't necessarily like that, you'll feel free to comment and question as we go along, because I'd like to have this as much a discussion than anything else. So what I wanted to talk about today is a newer buzzword in Buddhism, and that is letting go. What is letting go? Why we don't do it? And what part does it have in our practice and our walking the path of Dhamma? So to talk about letting go, I think we have to think about what is the goal of meditation. What is the goal of the Dhamma practice? And you'll hear a couple different things. Some people will say, oh, it's to be enlightened, or oh, it's to do this or to do that. My favorite answer, if you could call it a favorite, is to see things as they truly are. And Bhante Gunaratana talks about Vipassana meditation. The ultimate goal of meditation is to see things as they truly are. And when you see things as they truly are, letting go becomes, it doesn't become something that is something that's hard. It becomes something that's easy. It becomes something that's natural. Because you can, we all know in our daily lives people who are anxious, people who, if you have any degree of peace or of being able to be calm, and you feel like, oh, like you want to help these people, like but they have such anxiety, and you can say, oh, you just got to learn how to let go, and they look at you with funny eyes and say, yeah, that's nice. What the heck does that mean? It's not something that you can take a vow or decide, okay, from here on in, I'm letting go. You're not going to get anywhere doing that. As a matter of fact, every time we make a vow, it's kind of like a New Year's resolution. You know what's going to happen a month after you make the resolution. You're going to go back on it. You're not going to fulfill it. So when we talk about letting go, we're not talking about something that is active. We're talking about something that is passive. So how do we let go? Think about our daily lives. Those times where we continue to worry about things or continue to have things bother us when they really shouldn't, or we don't need them to bother us. Think about road rage. Somebody cuts you off. Can you let it go? Or do you feel like you have to speed up? You have to look and see who was this person that cut you off or did something that you feel is unjust to you. I know that that's something that I've always wanted to find out. Who is this person? Is it an old person? Is it this person? Is it that person? And that's something that I've come to learn to let go over time. But there's all these things where, if we, in life, these little instances, and that's what life is. It's a million little instances that build up over time. That moment, that decision that you have in that moment makes all the difference. And do you want to attach to something in that moment, or do you want to let it go? That's the key. So, the real one of the things that I like to talk about when I talk about letting go is one of the main things in Buddhism. What we talk about is letting go of the ego. And what is the ego, and how do we let go of the ego? Well, the answer is easy. It's seeing things as they really are. When you see things as they really are, it's easy to let go of it. But that's also the easy way of saying it is how do you get to that point? When you do meditation, when you're trying to walk the path of practice, it's a battle. We all know it. Trying to do anything can be a battle. Trying to lose weight, trying to do this, trying to meditate, trying to walk the path, and trying to see things as they truly are, it's a battle. But unlike physical battles that happen in the real world, this battle is the battle of ourselves. We're fighting ourselves. And the only way to win this battle is to not fight it. It is to let go. That is how you win the battle. And to bring in an obscure video game reference from when I was a child, this always kind of resonated with me. And now that I'm older and I have the insight and the practice that I have, I see the connection to it. There's one of my favorite video games. For those of you who are gamers, you might know the term Final Fantasy. But and they're stories, they're role-playing stories. And there was a character who's my favorite character. He starts out as what they call the Dark Knight, and he's kind of like a brooding, depressing kind of guy. But throughout the story, he has to become a paladin. He has to change himself, and he faces himself in this battle. And at first you start attacking your other self, and nothing's happening, and you're losing. And then you realize you don't. You just sit there, and the other self attacks you, and that's how you win. So that always connected with me as a truth. Even as a 12 or 13-year-old kid, like that made a lot of sense to me. And like I said, now I'm at this point, it's the same thing. It really is. The battle is with ourselves, and the Buddha talks about it. I'm not sure if it's in the Dhammapada. I think it might be in the Dhammapada, but the Dhammapada, it says better. You can win 1,000,000 battles on the field, But the most true battle won is the battle with yourself. The greatest battle is the battle won with yourself. I'm pretty sure that's from the Dhammapada, although I couldn't quote the exact spot where that is, because I remember doing the readings a couple, like 2 months ago, and reading that. So, and how do we win this battle? We win it by letting go. How do we let go? We do it naturally over time. You cannot decide that you want to let go. It's funny when you start to meditate, and the term is see things as they truly are. When you start to see things as they truly are, it doesn't become a burden. It becomes easy. It becomes a relief when you let these things go. For instance, I'm going to a meditation retreat, 7 days, starting Thursday morning. I'm going to be driving up there, and when I talk to people about it, they say, "Oh my God, you can't talk for 7 days? No cell phones for 7 days?" All these things in modern society that we're attached to, that we feel like we can't live without, and people can't imagine themselves doing that. But when you see the benefits of not having those things, it makes it easier. I have a cell phone. I have a computer. I have all of these trappings of modern life, but I love to go out into the wilderness and be away from them. I love to go to the meditation retreat and be away from them. I know that if I never had them again, I probably wouldn't miss them much. And that's coming from somebody who was described as people in my younger years as a computer addict. So it's something that comes to the point. I did spend a lot of my teenage years in behind the computer, that's for sure, playing games and all kinds of things. But it's something that is now. We'll go for an example, the 5 precepts. And we'll go for the 5th precept, which is refraining from the use of intoxicants. Now, when I took the 5 precepts 5 years ago, I had to the point where I had no desire at all, no need for intoxications, no need for alcohol or drugs or anything like that. So for me to take the 5 precepts was very easy. I haven't had an alcoholic beverage since I took it, and I don't desire it at all. I don't miss it. It's something that really wasn't something desirous to me in the first place. Some would say that that's because I drank away my desire in college, which, like most American college kids do. But the key point that I'm trying to get across is that by letting go is not an active thing. It's not something that you desire to do. You can't desire it. It's just something that happens, and you wait, and one day you're doing the meditation and you realize, whoa, that's weird. Yeah, the desire's not there. The attachment's not there. And it's a gradual process. The Buddha talks about uprooting the fetters, uprooting the things that chain us to samsara. And it's not something that you just take one foul swoop and it all goes away. It's something that is a gradual process that you see happening. And sometimes people say, well, how do I know if I'm letting go, or how do I know if this, or how do I know if I'm that? And one of the monks, I forgot his name, he's a very venerable monk in I think Myanmar, but he talks about one of the videos I watched of him talking, and somebody asked that question, and he says, if you are sick, do you know when you're not sick? Do you know when you're sick? It's something that you know. It's not something that somebody can tell you. A teacher can't say, "Oh, you're progressing really well." You know, the teacher's not in your mind. He doesn't really know. I mean, they can see some signs maybe, but they don't really know. So you know, and if you can trust your gut in that, you trust that innate feeling, that innate knowledge, that innate wisdom, insight, then it becomes something that you don't even have to strive to let go. You just know that from, past experience, that this is the path that you're on, and it comes in small increments, and it'll come when it comes. When I was, the whole letting go thing in meditation was something that I wish I had learned a lot of years earlier. When I started meditation, and those of you who heard me talk, you've heard me talk about this before. I started meditation, and it's like, okay, you got to follow the rules. You got to, okay, sit this way, make sure you're upright, make sure you're doing this. You got to follow the breath. You got to do this, do that, do this, do that. And I never got anywhere. I got frustrated. I got annoyed. At one point, I stopped meditating for like a year or two. And even when I was meditating back then, it didn't really feel like I got anything out of it. It wasn't until I started listening to teachers like Ajahn Brahm, like Bhante G, all these monks that talk about letting go. It wasn't until and then I started to do that. And I started to not care. I would just sit. I'm just going to sit, and whatever happens, happens. So I would just sit, and whatever happens. And then I learned to, you sit, and whatever happens, you observe it. And you don't put any judgment towards it. You don't try to steer it in any way. You're just there. And you don't realize it, but you are letting go just by doing that. Because you're not controlling. Like, and as an example, how I was back before I learned about letting go, I would get angry with myself. I would say, dang it, you're supposed to be doing this, like you're supposed to be doing that. Like your mind is supposed to be this way in meditation and that way in meditation. And it just wasn't happening. And the more I fed into it, the more angry I got, the more I tried to control that meditation, the worse it became. The absolute worst. It just kept getting to the point where total, utter frustration and just quitting. But now, now I try to, after a year or two of doing this complete letting go, I do try to add in a little bit. Okay, now we're observing. Now we're, so you add a little bit in there as time goes on. But I think people who teach meditation do a disservice to people if they just start out with the mechanics that, to me, don't fit with somebody who's never done meditation before, or who's done very little of it and is just starting. I think, at least from my experience, I've gained more insight in not following any rules than I have in trying to follow rules. When I sit down and I do my meditation, and I'm reading a book called Mindfulness in Plain English by Bhante Gunaratana. I highly suggest it. It's one of those books where I probably wouldn't have gotten much out of it in the past that I am right now. And it's just funny how all of the things that I decided, I said, all of the stuff that I decided on my own, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do this. And Bhante G talks about it in his book. And I was almost like, I wish I kind of did read it a couple years ago, but would I have understood it? I don't know. Or would I have just said, that's silly? I don't know. But it's funny how things happen at the right time. Things happen in their own time. And when we try to control things happening, that's when things get worse. Anytime you try to control something, anytime you try to expect something, something different always happens. And I'll give an example. Yesterday, my job is Child Protective Services. Those who have heard me talk before, you've heard me talk about. And there's a new person, a new woman, who I've been taking along with me to learn about the job. And so I had a court case yesterday that could have been very, very, what I call Jerry Springer-ish. There could have been all kinds of craziness in the courtroom, and it's something interesting for somebody who's just starting out to learn. So we sat for 2.5 hours, and everybody was fine. Everybody was consented, and there was no issue. So there was no Jerry Springer episode. So I'm like, okay, so we expected this to happen, and that didn't happen, and nothing happened. So then afterwards, I say, okay, we're going to just stop at this house. We're going to do a real quick visit, and it's a case that there's no major issues. It's going to be 10-15 minutes, and we're done. So we stop at the house, and then the mom discloses all this stuff about what's going on with her daughter, with her teenage daughter, and I was like, oh boy. So the thing that you expected to go crazy didn't, and the thing that you expected to go easy went crazy. And if you try to, expectations is part of control. And when you start to observe the mental processes, you start to see that, because expectations is your desire to control the future. But your desire to control the future has no basis in reality whatsoever. Desiring to control the future, even if it's a subconscious thing, you're not thinking about it, it's subconscious. Desiring to control the future is setting yourself up for dukkha, is setting yourself up for suffering. So that's why we always talk about trying to be mindful, be in the moment, not being in the future, not being in the past. So when we are in the present, that is the ultimate letting go. We're letting go of all the mind processes. The mind always wants to go to the future. The mind sometimes wants to go to the past. But if you're letting go of all that and you are present and mindful in the moment, you're in complete freedom, because you're just there with whatever happens, and you react to whatever happens, or you observe whatever happens. That's the same thing in meditation. Because as I always say, mindfulness is meditation, meditation is mindfulness. Of course, there's concentration in meditation as well, but mindfulness is a big part of that. And what the Buddha taught was, you don't just sit. Meditation is not something that you set time aside to do. Meditation is something that you do, or you can try to do, at all times, at all hours of the day that you're awake. Ajahn Chah's, one of his famous sayings was, when people would complain to him that they didn't have time to meditate, well, he would say, if you have time to breathe, you have time to meditate. Which makes 100% complete sense. When you realize that meditation is not an act that you do, that you're trying to obtain something, you're trying to get somewhere. You don't get anywhere by desiring to get something and trying to find out how to see things how they truly are. You get somewhere by letting go. They talk about sometimes, depending, different teachers, different types of Buddhism talk about how enlightenment is not something that you gain. It's not something that you strive for, that you work towards. Enlightenment is something that you already have. Or enlightenment is something that you let go to attain, because you're not trying to gain more things, you're trying to let go of things. You're trying to release yourself of all of these cravings and attachments and aversions and choices and decisions, all of this stuff that creates further becoming, that creates dukkha. All of this stuff, you're letting go of that stuff. You're but you're not forcefully letting go, because if you're forcefully letting go, then you're willing, you're taking an action, you're desiring. You can't do that. And it's something that, if you're at the beginning of your practice, admittedly it takes faith. It really does take a faith to kind of believe that in a way, or to kind of say, you know what, okay, I'll get to that point eventually. I'm not going to strive to that point, but I know that if I follow along what I'm doing, if I'm just observing, if I'm not trying to do anything, just observing and letting go, then I'll get there eventually. And then once you start to have insights and experiences, it becomes a matter of faith based on experience. Like, I'm not at this point, in my meditation practice, I'm not claiming I'm anywhere near anything. I'm not up to any stages or anything. They talk about the jhanas and all that. I'm not anywhere near any of that stuff. But at this point, I have enough faith to know that I'll get there eventually on my own time, and however it comes, it'll come. Because insight doesn't come when you're wanting it to come. Insight doesn't come when you're expecting it to come. Insight comes when you're completely and utterly not expecting it to come at all. Now see, that's an interesting one, and I'll talk. I've talked about this before a little bit. Sometimes in life, for some things, you have to make plans, but it's being attached to those plans that causes issues. And I'll use the great generals like Patton, like Caesar, like Alexander the Great. Every great general makes battle plans. You're silly if you don't. However, every great general knows that those plans are going to go out the window as soon as everything starts. So what you have to do is adapt to those plans on the fly, in the moment. So in life, sometimes we have to make plans. I mean, the Buddha Center has to make plans so that people know when to come. It's a conventional concept that has to be, that we use for things in life. So making plans themselves is not necessarily a bad thing, depending on the situation, depending on what you're doing, and depending on your attachment to those plans. If it's for work, of course you have to make plans for schedules and deadlines and all of this stuff. I make plans. I mean, I have to see, I have to do probably about 30 to 40 home visits in a month. And I can't do it just by going willy-nilly. Today I'm just going to go and see these people. Sometimes days are like that. But to get everything done in a month, you have to have organization, you have to have plans. But I'm not going to, how many times in that month are people canceling on me, or people not there when I show up? Now am I being like, oh, damn it, that's going to push me back, and I'm going to have to work extra hard, or am I going to have to do this, I'm going to have to do that? Or am I like, it'll get done. It'll work out somehow, I'll have to just make further plans. So it's not the plans themselves. Yeah, well, you're adjusting, just like the great generals in the middle of the battle. You're adjusting to what's happening in the moment. So, say I go and I go to do a visit, and the mom's about to rush out, and she's like, "Oh, I have to go to an emergency visit." So, okay. So, how about, can we do next Tuesday at 5? Okay, sure. So in the moment, I had a plan that went not the way I wanted it to, and I adjusted and I adapted, and that's the next plan. Now, of course, who knows if that next plan will work out. You might have to adjust and adapt when you get to the next plan. And so on and so on and so on. But the key is not that you don't want to plan, or, I mean, sometimes you don't need to plan things, but people do it anyway. Like, some people are just so, like, even on their weekends, they have to plan every hour of everything they want to do. That's a control issue. That's trying to control life. But if it's your job to do this and to do that, and I mean, you have to plan for it. You can't just do everything totally out of the blue. So, like I said, it depends. Planning depends on why you're planning, and your attachment to those plans will depend on how unskillful that is. Subject to change, yeah. So when you let go, when you're seeing things as they truly are, that all things that are impermanent, all things are subject to change, all things are changing always at all times, then you accept, okay, plans are shot, gotta make other plans. You're not attached to it. You weren't attached to that plan, so if you lose that plan, so we're going back to aversion, attachment, loss. If you lose that plan, then you have no attachment to it, so you're not going to suffer. Now, let's put it this way. You had a plan, and you were supposed to, we'll give an example. You're supposed to hang out with this person that you like. And at the last moment, the person says, oh, I'm bringing this person with us too. And it's some person that you don't like. And then 5 minutes after that, the person says, the person that you don't like is going to come hang out, but I can't hang out. So you end up hanging out, being with this person that you don't like. That's suffering too, because you have an aversion to this person, and you don't want to have anything to do with him. You're trying to push him away. Why am I hanging out with this person? Go away. So that's suffering as well. You're attached to something, and you don't, and you get separated from it. We're talking First Noble Truth. We're talking about life as dukkha. We're talking, you're attached to something, and you're separated from it. Suffering. You're averse to something, and you're joined with it. Suffering. Or you're averse to somebody or something, and you're joined with it. Suffering. So your attachment and your aversion create the suffering, whereas if you are able to work on letting go, and letting go doesn't happen, like I said before about how things happen in increments. You don't all of a sudden you practice, and then all of a sudden, boom, you let go of everything, and then you're just like Mahayana, they talk about spontaneous enlightenment and stuff like that. But even that is not spontaneous, because you work for aeons and aeons and lifetimes to the practice, and then it happens. So it's really not even spontaneous, and there's no such thing. You don't just letting go just doesn't all happen at once. It happens gradually over time, and you let go. There's certain things that I've been able to let go of that the average person would say, are you nuts? But then there's other things that I haven't been able to let go of yet that the average person would say, are you nuts? So it's not something that happens across the board. Not at all. It's something that happens in its own time, in its own way, and at its own pace. The only thing that you can do is keep practicing. That's it. Keep doing your meditation. Walking, sitting meditation. Keep trying to observe things as they truly are. The Buddha talked about this. Meditation is the path. Observing things as they truly are. And in meditation, if you get frustrated, stop meditating. If you get things you don't need to, keep yourself suffering. But if you get to a point where if you get frustrated while you're meditating, you're observing you're observing your frustration. And you get to this point where even in the middle of the day, if you're in the middle of work and you're used to observing things, something will happen, you'll react to it in your mind or through verbal or through mental or through physical actions, and you will have observed exactly what just happened. The one that knows, the mind, the consciousness observing knows exactly what had happened, and you understand what happened. That's why I did this. These are the mental processes that led to me doing this. So it's something that it takes practice, but it's also something that comes on its own, goes on its own, and happens on its own time. The main thing that you want to do is that no matter what happens, and who said, was it Jishu or Bauman? You had read the mindfulness in plain English. It's exactly what Bhante Ji says. Whatever happens, you're observing it. You're not even. Bhante Ji is big on not noting. Some, when you hear a lot of people will say noting, say breath in, breath out, or thought, 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 pain, pain, pain. Bhante Ji says, when I went to my retreat in November, he says, you know when you're in pain. You don't need to note that you're in pain. And I could probably do a whole other talk on noting and not noting, because I do think that noting in the beginning is helpful, but when you get to the point that you get to a point where you don't need to anymore. Good link. Very good link. It's well worth it. I actually have a physical copy of it that I got when I went to my retreat with Bhante Ji, but that's it's the same thing. So I actually have that on my Kindle too, the PDF version. So you're letting. I'm trying to remember if I was going any further in the path where I was going. Oh yes, the observing. You're observing everything, even your thoughts. You're observing. That sounds kind of weird, does it? Sounds like, how do you observe your thoughts? Like you're thinking about your thoughts? No, you're observing your thoughts. And I talk about one of my first what I call great insights. Although I used to put a lot more attachment to it than I do now. Was that when I started, really getting into my meditation and doing my walking meditation and all that, and I was walking, and I was, and this was after a while of knowing about letting go and stuff. So I was walking, and my mind wanted to sing Sweet Caroline. Those of you who heard me talk, you've heard this story a million times. So my mind wanted to sing Sweet Caroline, so I let it sing. And I wasn't whispering it, I wasn't singing it out loud, just my mind wanted to play like a record, Sweet Caroline. And I was observing, and I was just walking, and all of a sudden I noticed nothing. Absolutely nothing. No thoughts in my mind, no singing, nothing. And it was such a shocking experience to me that it felt like this huge, big, insightful thing. And I remember trying to think, like will myself to think, but I wasn't thinking. And I thought to myself, well, who the hell is observing me not thinking? How am I observing me not thinking? So, and I remember going to the retreat. That was one of my first questions. But was, what exactly was this thing? And Bhante Ji, the first thing he said, don't worry about it, just keep meditating. And Ajahn Brahm says the same thing. All the teachers, they say the same thing, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to attach to one thing or another. You're supposed to just observe, and it arises. You observe as it stays there, and you observe as it goes. So it's not something, and it's funny now, it's almost like a drug. And I say this because my mind has gotten to that point since then, but I don't have that weird elation, that feeling of, oh my God, what is this? It's just like, eh. So it's almost like you can become addicted to meditation. Like you want to, like, oh, okay, I got to meditate harder now so I can try to get, something maybe that's even cooler than that and have that feeling again. You know, where Bhante G would just say, what are you doing? Don't attach to that. It's just a phenomena that happened. Let it go and keep trucking. Keep on trucking. Keep meditating. Keep going. So even, in terms of, we're talking about letting go, we can even attach to meditation itself and the things that happen in meditation. And that's almost like double worse than attaching to anything else, because you're attaching to the very vehicle that you're trying to use to let go in the first place. So that's one of those things where it's like, but if you observe it, you can observe yourself attaching. And I remember Bhante G said, don't worry about it, just keep meditating. And I was attached to it still because I was curious, a very curious person, always questioning. I want to know, what the heck is this? And it was almost more like I just wanted to know what it was more than I was attached to it, So I asked Bhante Silananda, and he kind of thought about it, and he goes, that's mindfulness of mind. And so I thought to myself again, okay, so who the heck's being mindfulness of my mind? What's being mindfulness of my mind? And then, that's a question that if you ask, like, it's a complicated questioning. Yeah. So it's just, I come to think of it as like a gut feeling, like a mind, like it's almost like a sixth sense to me. Like, and this is me describing it. And I don't know if I want to describe it like this, but this is just, don't take this as fact or anything. This is just me kind of trying to think about it, which is probably not good either. But I almost kind of think of it as like a sixth sense. Like there's this something they talk about. It's the one who knows, and it's the one who knows that is observing this mind, the mind going silent, the mind having no thoughts. The one who knows these things, and you observe these things, and you, no matter what happens, no matter what thought happens, no matter what emotion happens, you're not feeding it, you're observing it. And when you just observe something, you notice that it comes into being, it reaches a climax, and it descends, and it disappears. It ceases to exist. All things. And they all do it on their own time. Even the universe. The universe is 14 billion years old, and it's still growing. Eventually it's going up. It's arisen, it's going up. Eventually it's going to go down, and it's going to cease. All things are impermanent. And that is the key. That is when you truly, truly realize that, and it's not just a concept in your mind that you read out of a book or you heard people say. When you truly realize that, and I'm not claiming that I have, by the way, just but I almost kind of see that when you truly realize it, that is when you start to see things as they truly are. And the Buddha talks about how he did not claim to be enlightened until he fully, truly understood and penetrated the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths are a very elusive thing for us, because we can read it and we say, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But we don't see it. Seeing things as they truly are is seeing the Four Noble Truths. That's seeing things as they truly are. And that's what we're trying to work towards. Not having a mind concept of it, but actual experience of it. And that's the point that we're all nowhere close to. Because we're all nowhere close, most likely. I don't know how, everybody's practice, but we're all most likely nowhere close to being arhants, to being enlightened ones. but that's where we're working towards. And we're not working towards that as a goal because we say, I want to be enlightened. I'm going to be enlightened. Even Ajahn Chah, it's funny, there's an interview, and you can watch it on, there's basically like 10 minutes worth of Ajahn Chah on video on YouTube. And one of the things, he says, he talks about how, to the interviewer, not striving for nirvana, and then the interviewer goes, so you have to strive without striving. And Ajahn Chah says, yep. So it's like, okay, how do you strive without striving? And it's not something that you can wrap your mind around. It's something that you gain through insight. It's something that you see through experience. And you start to see that when you start to see that doing the opposite is getting you nowhere. So for me, where I started to switch around was doing the opposite, or doing what quote unquote is the rules or the tips or the way you start meditation. To me, doing that was getting me nowhere. Doing the total opposite of that was just sitting there and being one and just observing, and just whatever happens. That has started to get me somewhere. And that is how I follow. I follow my gut. Whatever it is, if that's the one who knows, then that's the one. Then that's I. And it's funny because I've always followed a gut feeling. It's a feeling inside of you that tells you this is the right way, this is the wrong way. And it's fun. I even do it every morning when I do my meditation. I don't watch the clock. I don't do anything. Well, before I do my meditation, I do a little bit of my kung fu that I do to get the blood going, and then I do walking meditation, and then I do sitting meditation. And how I know to go from walking to sitting to try to get like an even balance is just with my gut. I'll stop and I'll be standing meditation, and I'll know that I should go and do sitting meditation now, or I can do more walking meditation. It's not something that's an intellectual thing. It's not something that I say, okay, well, the last time I checked the clock it was this, so it's probably around this time, and I want to get halfway, do half walking, half sitting, so I'm probably going to guess it's like in 2 minutes, and then I do this. It's not that at all. It's just going with the gut. And you know what? Even if it's not even time, it doesn't matter. Because you're not attaching to any time frame. You're not attaching to the future. You're not thinking about the future. You're just there in the moment and reacting to what's happening in the moment. If I feel like I can do my walking meditation more, I do my walking meditation more. And if that ends up me having less sitting meditation time, oh well, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to meditate again tomorrow. There's not, so it's this part of letting go that, like I said, it's something that happens naturally. It's something that when you start to see things work, and when you start to have faith in things, and when you start to not worry about things so much, it's almost like a snowball effect, because you start to get more and more insight and more things, and then you have more faith and more faith. And in the suttas they talk about, and the Buddha talks about, somebody who has no doubts. There's no doubts in the Buddha, no doubts in the Dhamma, no doubts in the Sangha. And that is somebody, I believe they connect that to somebody who's like a 7 returner or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. And so I wouldn't say that I'm at the point where I have no doubts. I cannot say that. Obviously, I still have doubts. But I have a lot less doubts than I used to have. So I know that I'm getting somewhere. It might take 1,000 more lives. I might do it in this life. Who the heck knows? I don't know. I can't know. So why bother worrying about it? All I worry about, all I want to do is just keep practicing. And if I feel like I need to change my practice, my gut feeling says do this, then I'll try it. And it usually works out, and sometimes I change my practice. Like now my gut feeling is telling me more and more to start trying to follow the breath more and trying to work towards being able to completely and utterly, truly observe the breath without control of the breath. I've only been able to do that, I think, twice that's ever happened to me. And you know it when it happens, because your mind is observing your breath, and it's like, whoa, I'm not controlling it at all. Even in the slightest, even subconsciously, you're not controlling it, and you know you're not controlling it. It's just like what the bhikkhu said before, how it says, when you're sick, you know you're sick. You know because you observe, because you see, because you're experiencing it, you know. Nobody can answer the question for you. Nobody can tell you you're observing it. You see it. So I've had this feeling that I'm going to start trying to work towards observing the breath more, and working towards, and I feel like observing the breath, even though I know I'm controlling it, but the more I observe myself controlling the breath, the more I will let go of the breath. And I know this because I've seen this in my own experience with other parts of it, of meditation, of the practice. So I don't see an end to it. I mean, I don't see myself, okay, within 6 months, I'm not going to have to control my breath at all ever again. I don't see that end. But I know from faith, because of past experiences, that I will get there eventually. And that's all I need to worry about. So that's my goal, if any, if I have a goal in my practice, is to move towards that point. So, and Lisa, that's a good one. I set that goal, right? But am I attached to it to the point where I know I got to do it? So I'm going to do extra meditation. So I'm going to do extra this. So I'm going to strive and force myself to do it. No, I'm not going to. I know that it'll come eventually. So that's my goal. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to work on it. And maybe it'll never come. But I have faith that it will, because of past experience. So that is, setting a goal without being attached to it. Strive without striving. That's a very good point. And Jishu, that's a good point as well. I like that. True self is without identity or attributes. The Buddha talks about observing the 32 parts of the body and not seeing self within those 32 parts. And he goes on, and not seeing self within the mind, not seeing self within this and that, and he talks about that. So I went yapping a little bit longer than I thought I was going to, but if anybody has any questions or comments at this point, we can discuss that. Thank you for coming, Delani. As always, good to see you. Well, I can't guarantee that I'll have any great ones in the future. I can almost guarantee that I'll have talks in the future. I can't guarantee they'll be any good. So yeah. Now I do have a YouTube page, and I do record these talks and put them on that page. So if you want to see this, or you want to see other talks, and you're more than welcome to go to that. And I also do like a little video blog kind of thing that I've been a little bit behind on. I haven't talked about it. Haven't done one of those in a little bit of a while, but and I'm a still gamer. Yeah, remember how I talked about one of those things that I haven't been able to get rid of, and people say what? Yes, I'm a still gamer. I was just playing games about an hour and a half ago or so. Yes, you can be a Buddhist and a gamer at the same time. It's not, yeah, there's no guilt in being a gamer. And yes, I played about 90 hours of Skyrim. Yes. So that's one of those things. Like you come onto something like Second Life, and you come to the Buddhist Center, and you're just like, oh, then nobody's supposed to know I'm a gamer. I'm supposed to be like a Buddhist here, you know. Silly. Yes. So there's no guilt in Buddhism, so there's no guilt in gaming either. Although, admittedly, you could do too many games and forsake things that you should be doing, which the Buddha, talked about, and that's too much of an attachment, because you are supposed to be, running your household and doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. That you have dependents, etc. But there's nothing wrong with eventually you will come to not needing enjoyments and entertainments, because you do realize. Now listen, I realize that games are a waste of time. Even though I feel like the games that I play, I get a lot out of, because I love stories and stuff like that. But deep down, I realize I'm wasting my time playing video games. But I'm not to the point where I can just say, I have no desire, and it's just done. I can say, make a vow, from here on in, no more video games. How long do you think that'll last? I mean, I'm pretty strong-willed compared to many, so I might last a while, but eventually I was like, I like video games. They're fun. I get to go on with my buddies and fight interstellar wars and do all these kind of things that I'll never be able to do. So you're attached to all these experiences, but exactly, yeah. So and the Buddha does the Buddha, he, even for lay people, there's nothing wrong with entertainments. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, obviously, because if you're trying to strive further, you start to realize that they are a waste. But people are in all different types of levels. Everybody can't just become a monk. I mean, I talk about how my path is most likely leading towards me becoming a monk. And people say, are you really going to give up video games for life? Are you really going to do this? Are you really going to do that? And I'm to the point where I probably will be able to. If I'm not in a lay life, if I'm not working, if I'm not, if I'm just concentrating, it's very easy. I mean, I go away to the monastery on retreats. I go into the woods because I'm a self-proclaimed mountain man. I like doing some survivalist things, so I go into the woods without any cell phone service, any of that stuff, and I enjoy all that stuff too. Yeah, and in a lot of ways, out of sight, out of mind. No, Bear Grylls is too fake. I'm Survivor, man. I hide my games under my robe. So it's interesting because there's issues like, oh my God, monks use computers. Isn't that against the monks' rules? And like you have like Venerable Yuta Dhamma, who teaches here and has all kinds of stuff, or Bante, or Ajahn Brahm, who I've had monks say, oh, some monks just like to be a little famous, so that's why they'll go online and I say that's rubbish. Even though a monk said that, I still think that's rubbish. Obviously, yes, you if you're dealing with fame, you can let that go to your head. But to me, spreading the Dhamma like that to people like myself, who's a Westerner, who doesn't have that close to me, who doesn't have that daily Dhamma to know, to listen to understand, that's a valuable, skillful thing to do. So to me, a monk using a computer to spread the Dhamma like that is very skillful, very valuable. To some old monk in Thailand, they might say, "Oh, that's very bad. That breaks one of the Vinaya rules," or something like that. I mean, so it's a matter of perspective to that, anyway. Yes, exactly. Monks hide their PSPs. Well, it's funny. Where is it? It wasn't that there. I was watching a video and it was about. I'm in New Jersey as well, by the way. I was watching a video and like they showed these like little novice monks, like the 8, 9-year-old kids, and they're playing games, and they're monks, but they're playing games and they're doing all these things that kids normally do. So it's almost kind of like even the monks realize that they're little kids. They're not gonna, you're not gonna make them a complete celibate, non-using entertainment monk out of a little kid. It's silly because the kid's learning, exploring, and all these kind of things. So yeah, I'm from Jersey, yo. I got my hair slicked back. I got all this. I'm gonna apply for the next cast of Jersey Shore. Yeah. I reside 5 minutes from the Jersey Shore people. I've grown up right there, right outside of Seaside. It's a town called Tom's River, supposedly named after an old Native American named Tom who lived by the river. Whether that's a myth or not, I don't know. New York. So, city New York or state New York? Ah, okay. So one of the things that what you're trying, what does what mean, Denise? One of the things that you're always trying to do is you're trying to get rid of attachments. Oh, Denise is from Mexico, by the way, so she might not know the New York slang. Uh, yeah. Uh, so, where was I going? I don't remember. That's what happens when you laugh sometimes. Oh yes, yes, I was going. I'm not a big city person. As a matter of fact, I would say I have an aversion to cities. And I almost say like if I become a monk, I should be like live in the city or something like that, or I should live. I applied to those of you who know the area. I applied to be a teacher in Camden. I'm gonna apply to be a teacher in Newark too, actually. So it's gonna be if I end up teaching in an inner city, it's gonna be something that is totally and utterly opposite of what I ever always wanted to do. Living in a city and all this stuff. But in a way, I almost feel like it's a good thing. An example of that is I'm growing out my hair. For the last really for I would say the last 15 years, I've always wanted to shave my head. In the last 5 years, I have had a shaved head. But I grew to the point where I grew attached to having a shaved head. It was part of my identity. So I made a vow, which I'm following. I don't necessarily know if it's a bad vow, but whatever. That for the next year, from September to September, I'm going to grow out my hair, grow out my beard. So now I'm a guy with fairly long hair to the point where I have to comb it back, and I have a pretty thick goatee. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm attached to the day that I get to shave it all off again. Because it's so much easier not to have hair and not to have deal with all these things. But at least I'm not to. So I guess technically I'm still attached to not to having that, and I don't know if I'll be fully unattached to it when I do shave all of that. Because there's really good reasons to have shaved head. That's why ascetics did it in the first place. There's really good reasons. You don't even have to be attached to it to know that there's good reasons. So you have to pay him to shave. Well, admittedly, I am pretty lazy when it comes to shaving. I'm trying to, because the monks, they shave every day, and they shave their head once a month. So eventually, if I become a monk, I'm gonna have to, get into the practice of that. So, but it's one of those things. It's like, oh, I gotta shave again, especially because my hair grows really quick. I mean, I can get fairly long hair within a year. Halfway, I have probably about 4 inches of hair just from 6 months. So, by the time I shave my head, I'm gonna have a pretty long, hair, and it's gonna be nice. It's not gonna be long enough, unfortunately, to donate to Locks of Love or something like that, which would be nice. But some of you know that my wife died of cancer a lot of years ago and stuff like that. So that would be kind of neat if I could donate to Locks of Love, but you have to have long hair to be able to do that. I just did yoga yesterday. I do yoga every Monday. No, I'm not letting it grow for a few more years. I like my shaved head. Growing up until the point where I wanted to I enjoyed shaving my head. I always wanted, because I grew up loving the Middle Ages, and I actually used to do medieval fighting and armor and all kinds of stuff like that. So I always wanted to be one of those dudes with the long hair, one of those guys. But when I actually tried to grow my hair out, it just wasn't going that way. My hair grows sideways and then kind of down. So I never, and my hair is really curly, so I can't really control it. It's not curly, but wavy. So I have these big ocean waves in my hair. So it's I'll never be one of those dashing medieval dudes with the long straight hair like I'm Fabio or something like that. So it's that kind of killed my my attachment to that hairdo, So so now I just I love my shaved head, because when I wake up in the morning, I don't have to do anything with it. And I save a lot of money on shampoo, no combing, no worrying about. It's funny. My hair, today, I used this gunk to slick my hair back because I was too attached to my hair not looking like a crazy Einstein. And I'm thinking to myself, technically I am a professional. I should kind of look, not like a crazy Einstein with my hair when I'm trying to go out and deal with clients and deal with the courts and deal with all these people. So it's almost like I'm attached, like I have to do something with this hair. So then I start putting gunk on it, and then I start worrying about, oh, is my hair this, is my hair that? And that's all that attachment that if I didn't have any, out of sight, out of mind, I don't even have to worry about it. And that's a big part of also why the Buddha, no hair is good for health reasons. It's good for vanity reasons, less attachment. You don't have to worry about it. So I'm glad I did what I'm doing, because it's a good lesson in the Dhamma. It's a good experience. It's a good way to observe attachments and aversions to, related to that specific thing, which is the hair, which is related to looks, which is related to how people view you, which is related to, if can you get the opposite sex or not, which is related to are you successful or not, which is and it's all of this stuff is in that mind frame. You don't think about it because it's all subconscious, because it's all something that's taught into you, from a young age. So you don't think about it. But when you start to do your meditation and your practice, you start to see that all of that subconscious stuff becomes revealed, and you start to see why you're doing it. So as I'm gunking up my hair this morning, I'm like, oh, I know I know why I'm doing this. I know why I'm doing that. And it's almost like I almost feel like I'm betraying my Buddhas. Like, oh, I'm betraying the Dhamma because I got to do this stuff. There's and I observe that as well. Observe these feelings of why, in the end, it really doesn't matter, does it? I mean, yeah, I could go, in front of a judge with my hair all crazy, and I can get reprimanded or whatever, and I can get fired and lose my job and get my car repoed and all that stuff. And yeah, that in the end, does it matter? Is it good, bad? Who knows? Most people would say, of course it's bad, are you nuts? And even in my own mind, I say, yeah, that's bad, of course it's bad. But I haven't reached the point where I'd say, like Ajahn Brahm. I don't know if you've seen one of the newer videos, Denise, where he talks about good, bad, who knows? You lost your job, good, bad, who knows? And that's really good. I mean, it's something that you come to see through experience, through insight. It's not something that you could say it, and then when the shit hits the fan, and I'm gonna say shit because Ajahn Brahm can say shit, so don't say anything about it. But when the shit hits the fan, then it's not something that you've seen through experience. So the concept of it goes out the window. Oh yeah, good, bad, who knows? That's nice. Big deal. Yeah, it's nice to say that, but well, see, this is the interesting thing when it comes to words. We know that words are concepts. We know that words really have no meaning in and of themselves. However, because people attach meaning to words, and because people attach the meaning to the words, they attach aversion or attachment to those words. And because they do, it affects them. It causes dukkha. So even though the words mean nothing, you could say shit, 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 shit. It's just a word. It's just wind passing through your lips, through your tongue. Somebody who has an attachment to that or an aversion to it, they take offense to it, and it hurts them. And this is something that you do not want to do. It's called unskillful speech. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, you know in your own head, it's just a word. It doesn't mean anything. Like, you can even go even worse. The N word. If I said that right now, oh my God, he said it. And that is an extremely offensive word to some people. So even though I know that it's just a word, it's just wind, even though some black people would know it's just wind, to some people, because they have an aversion to that word, negro, like black, right? Yeah, so I mean that the same thing with Italian. I was raised Italian, and my grandparents spoke it, so that's what I first. I was like, well, what is that? What is? Are they saying that? Um, yes, I'm 75% Italian. I'm first generation. My mom was born in Italy. She came over in 1955 on the Andrea Doria. The 3 out of my 4 grandparents are almost 100% Italian. The other 1/3, 1/4 is has been in this country probably 200 years, somewhere's around there. I have Cherokee in me. I have English, Scottish. I have that's the mutt in me, but the majority of me is Italian. Hence why I say with my hair slicked back that I'm going to apply for the new cast of Jersey Shore. My name is going to be Joey D, because that's my name, Joseph Denisi. Joey D, yo, let's go to the club. Let's go to. You know what's funny? I live there, and I'm trying to remember what the clubs are from where I live from the show. Bamboo, that's right. Let's go to Bamboo. Let's go to Karma. There's actually a club called Karma. It's right there. It's literally 10 minutes from me. The club called Karma. Yes. I've never been there, but I would almost like go in. It's like, where's all the Buddhas? No, it's a bunch of Snookies fist pumping. Yep. Oh man. It's just a word. It bothers you because you have an attachment to the word Buddha. And because of that attachment, you feel that there needs to be some kind of a respect. And because it's called Buddhas, you're feeling that there's a disrespect. And you feel like, hey, there's all kinds of drug use, and probably they're having sex in the bathroom, and they're doing all these kind of things that are against the 5 precepts. But and it's called the Buddha. How could they do that? We're gonna get mad and fist pump or something. So. Well, no. You know what? Technically, no. Sex in the bathroom, as long as it's consensual, is not against the precepts. So. But I mean, it's considered as something like, oh, that's bad or whatever. Sex in the karma, exactly. So, you know what's funny? Since I've been recording for an hour and a half, I just got a thing that says I have low disk space. I don't even want to know what the size of this recording is. Oh, okay. I think I'm going to stop recording so that my computer doesn't